Welcome to The Happy Writer, a show about creating and sustaining a long-term author career. My name is Patty Jansen, writer of science fiction and fantasy. I've published independently since 2011. This show covers motivation, diversification, learning new skills, and your place in your career. Come on in and be happy. Should I sell audiobooks? This is the first part in a 3-part series on shoestring audio for self-published authors. There is a lot of talk about the rise in audiobooks. Some articles show that the sales of audiobooks are surging. So, if you don't have audiobooks, better get in there while you can, right? Well, maybe. There is a lot going on in the audiobook sphere, and a lot to consider, and not all of it is good. Many of the reports in the media need to be taken with a grain of salt, because several of the much-hyped sales figures are based on trade-published books only, and for years, the traditional publishing industry has been pushing buyers away from ebooks. Still, there is no denying that many people are getting into audiobooks. Should you do the same? The answer isn't clear-cut, and will depend on what you write and where you are in your author career, and frankly, how much money you want to invest in it. Commonly given advice about the feasibility of audiobooks is that if your ebook isn't selling well, your audiobook won't either. It's not easy to market audiobooks on their own, so their sales will always be related to ebook sales. This is true. The discoverability of audiobooks is, to excuse my French, piss poor, and your ebook sales will have to do the heavy lifting. But it's not the entire story. People who listen to audiobooks don't always read ebooks, and vice versa. Not all genres do well in audio. Audio is more expensive to purchase, so genres that are populated by readers who don't have much money, such as young adults, or people who read at such volumes that getting books cheaply is important, such as romance, tend not to do as well. On the other hand, the science fiction and fantasy categories are populated by books that are long and part of series that make satisfying listening for audio consumers. And of course, non-fiction is big in audio. Of course, there are exceptions to these general observations. If your ebook sells well, the audio will sell too, regardless of genre. It's also important to understand the audio landscape. How do listeners consume books? Most listeners use an app, and many people listen on their phones while commuting or doing something else. The biggest player in the audiobook market is Audible, but the ground is shifting under the feet of the audio world. Kobo, Nook, Google, and of course Apple have their own audio apps, and so have a whole slew of other places, including Scribd, Bookmate, Storytel, Nextory, and library apps like Libby and Hoopla. Library listening to audio is becoming huge. How do you get your audiobooks in these places? The elephant in the room that I will deal with first is ACX, which feeds books into Audible and Apple. ACX is owned by Amazon and is the biggest audio distributor, but it's very important to realize that it's not the only place to upload your books, that it's not the best market, and it has a number of very important and limiting restrictions. You can't distribute direct to ACX unless you're in the US, Canada, or the UK. Audible is a subscription platform. They also sell audio on a non-subscription basis, but the subscription option is pushed hard to customers. Audible subscriptions are available in the US, UK, Canada, Germany, and Australia. Hang on, authors in some of those countries can't upload to the platform direct. Yup, welcome to the quagmire that is ACX. This is one of the benign idiosyncrasies of the platform. So let's get into the not-so-great things. ACX advertises that they pay you 40% for an outright sale, if you're exclusive and 25% if you're not, meaning if you want to sell elsewhere. But because most of the sales are through subscription credits, they use an infuriatingly opaque royalty calculation that will end up paying you less than $1 per sale. Keep that in mind. You can't set the price for an outright purchase on the site, so you can't run promotions. Of course, you can run promotions on the ebook and hope audio listeners see it. They do, in modest numbers. On top of that, the site is full of scammers and shenanigans. For example, people claim your book on ACX Audible and produce an illegal version, possibly using AI. People produce scam audio to defraud creators and narrators, giving the industry a bad name. ACX Audible encouraging listeners to return books so that they can reuse the monthly credit. Of course, when a book is returned, the sale vanishes off an author's dashboard. ACX banning author accounts based on automated detection of some sort of transgression that's never explained, with the author having no avenue for recourse. At this point of time, ACX is literally the worst company we have to deal with. Endless audio approval times, repeated weird rejections of books that shouldn't be rejected, returns, garbage reporting, garbage website that keeps crapping out, garbage back-end service. It's high on the tread with extreme care list. Okay, then what else? Findaway Voices is an audio aggregator that will distribute to ACX Audible on your behalf. They will also distribute your book to a whole host of other venues, including Google Play and Apple and all the other venues mentioned before, over 40 in total. They don't do Spotify yet. They take a cut of your sales. Findaway Voices has Authors Direct, where you can sell your audio direct to your fans. You can upload your audiobooks direct to Kobo. The site is fast and efficient, and the book gets approved quickly. BookFunnel can also deliver audio direct to your readers, but you have to set up the sales platform. You can use Payhip or Shopify or WooCommerce, but you need your own website. There are other audio distributors like Authors Republic. Finally, you can upload your audio to YouTube. You can't sell your books there, but it might be good for loss leaders. The audio landscape is one of subscriptions, and while you may hate subscriptions, they're not going away anytime soon. Audible pushes their subscription model pretty hard. There are many other subscription services. Findaway Voices will get your book into library subscriptions and other services such as Hoopla and Scribd. Like Audible's credit system, these don't pay much per read, but they can add up. So, should you get into audio? If your ebook has been selling very well, you might already have received an offer from a production company. Companies like Tantor or Podium are well regarded. But even if they make you an offer, there are a few things you have to be wary of. Audio is expensive and time-consuming, so it's tempting to let someone else take it off your hands. Reputable as they are, these companies are still likely to orphan a series if the first book doesn't sell well by their benchmarks. It means they will take and produce the first book in a series and maybe another book or two, but won't complete the series. If that happens, are you then going to produce the other books by yourself? They are going to be even harder to market than audio already is, because you have no control over the first book. If you receive an offer, it means they think they can make money, which means you could probably make more doing it yourself and keep control of the series. How frustrating would it be not to have control over the first book in your series and be unable to enter it in promotions? In general, there are two rather depressing aspects to selling audiobooks. One, the cost of production is much higher than ebooks, and two, sales are likely to be lower. On top of that, you get a much smaller percentage of the cover price. So yeah, tread with care. This is not for beginners. On the other hand, even if your book is not a bestseller, it can be worth producing an audiobook if you can keep production costs low and fully funded by sales you have already made. You can keep costs low by either recording it yourself or by hiring it out to someone cheaper. Look for part 2 on how to find a narrator. Or you can do it yourself. More about that in part 3 of this mini-series. One fact holds for both ebooks and audiobooks. The more books you have in your catalogue, the easier they become to sell. And related to that, the more control you retain over your books, the greater your ability to take advantage of opportunities or create your own. More promotion opportunities are coming up all the time. You want to retain the ability to take part. Exclusivity or farming your production out to others does not do that. Also, don't gamble any money on audio production that you can't afford to lose. In short, I wouldn't recommend audio to first-time authors with a first book unless the book takes off like clappers and continues to sell well. I would recommend paying for audio out of sales of existing books rather than putting your own money into it. I would also make sure to retain control over both the book and the pricing, which means not to be exclusive to ACX Audible. Direct sales from my website are both much cheaper to listeners and more profitable for me. So, that's my mixed bag on audio. I declared 2020 the year of audio before COVID hit and mercifully closed the airport, and I've put a slew of books out in audio. Reading some myself allowed me to hire a narrator for others and keep myself in the black at the same time. Thank you for listening to The Happy Writer Show. Check out links and other episodes on my website at pattyjansen.com and my YouTube channel.